Welcome back to Inside Integration. My name is Chris. I'm joined, as always, by my partner, Jason.
What's up, everybody?
And today we're going to be getting into whether trade shows are worth it and worth it for attendees, worth it for exhibitors. We're going to unpack all of that a little bit. This comes up because Lightapalooza is upon us, and we're going to be shoveling our typical amount of plugging for people to go to Lightapalooza because that does seem like one of them that's worth it. But with all of these other, we've got trade shows for CEDIA. We've got a CEDIA Expo every year, which is great. We've got CEDIA regionals, which happen in a lot of places in the country throughout the year. We've got Total Tech Expo. We've got CI Expo, I think, is the one that's in the Bay Area. CES, the mother of all of these things. And we've also got ProSource summits, ASION summits, HTSA summits. Like, there's a lot on an integrator's calendar for the year, and a manufacturer's calendar for the year, quite frankly, too. Are these things worth it?
Yeah, that's a great question. I
See, I was
think.
hoping you would just say like no, and then we just end the episode and like that's the end of that. Like,
Well,
no, it's
I
done.
mean, I think by and large, the value proposition is kind of waffly. I don't think there's a hard answer
It's a
for
lot of
a yes
factors.
or a no. There's a lot of factors. I mean, for the we'll just face it, for like the guys that show up to a CEDIA with a Costco folding table and a printed out banner on a blue curtain behind them may get a different ROI than the vendor that shows up and buys a 100 by 100 foot piece of carpet. And obviously, we're talking about a different scale of business here, right? But
Sure.
the the math works out to be the same at the end of the day. Did I grow my business? Did this exposure turn into a metric that I can measure as success? Did I lose money on this? Did I make money on this? What does this investment in a trade show actually bring me? And I think everybody that attends a trade show or hosted a trade show has to do that exact same, formula in their head.
Yeah, and it's a difficult thing. I mean, I've been to a lot of these things on both sides of the fence now. For a rep firm, obviously, we kind of have to be there. For a manufacturer, I think of a certain size, you kind of have to be there too because this is your opportunity. Everybody's going to come to you, right? Like you're not going to have to travel to every territory and show people things and get their hands on, and that both of those things make sense. But as an integrator, I've worked for big companies that have brought 20 people out to CEDIA and 30 people out to CEDIA and
Wow.
whatever. And, it's a lot of fun. And we kind of treated it as this is sort of another perk, right? Of like, hey, you're part of this team, you're producing all year, you've gotten yourself into this position. There's a CEDIA trip. Hey, lucky you could be away from your family for 4 days or whatever it is. And, here it is. And everybody travels together. It really helps to build, some of that teamwork. And by the way, you get to meet these manufacturers. Usually if you're traveling with a contingent that large, you're getting, the personalized CEDIA experience where you're not just kind of on the show floor, like you're in a group, it's sort of highly directed.
Yeah.
Your rep is bringing you around to booths and
He
giving you
put
the,
me in the Wayback Machine there for a minute, man. Like, I
yeah,
literally, as you were describing all of that, I was thinking of the very first time I went as a tech to CEDIA, where it was they paid for the trip, they were putting money in my pocket to be there. I was learning stuff, I was
it's,
going to classes, I
it's
was
exciting.
walking the show floor, and then every vendor, of course, that we went to had a party that night, so they're trying to ply me with food and liquor. Like, talk about a pretty intoxicating event, on multiple levels, shall we say, of going to a trade show for the first time. I don't know what that experience is like for younger techs now, but I'm pretty sure that that same level of excitement and anticipation has got to be there, right? There's the I don't know what this is. I don't know who's going to be there. I don't know what I'm going to see, but I'm excited about it. Like there's a vibe, there's an energy here. So yeah, sorry, I just got
No, all
got
good.
lost in a on a train of thought when I was thinking about you talking about, hey, you made it to this point in a firm, and I was like, I was this guy that Chris is describing right now to a T. Like, I was busting my butt out there in the field, and we were producing, and we were earning, and all of a sudden it's like, hey, by the way, because you're the lead tech, you're going to Indianapolis this year. And I remember that feeling of like
Yay,
Wow,
Indy.
that's yay, Indy. Yeah, right. I'm going to leave Florida and I'm going to go to Indy in September. I'm going to leave where humidity was born to where they export it
Right.
really make sure that I'm getting a same heat wave experience in both places.
Well,
But
and that's, I mean, that's specifically why I brought that up, is because it is very, very much a core memory. The first time I went out to a CEDIA, back in the day with EDG, and it was our big team, and everybody was, going out there, and again, being proto Chris, like,
oh,
way far back on the evolutionary scale, where it's
so are
you.
you like a nesting doll? Like, will they take another Chris out of the older one,
It's
or is it build up the other way? Are you
it's
getting
more, it's like a
bigger or
clone
smaller?
that's not fully formed, like maybe a little slimy and glistening, like it just came out of a
Ah,
pod.
okay.
Yeah, that's where I started, in a
Yeah.
pod, but
You look like a
that's
battery.
where
I
I got
knew
my
it.
podcasting chops.
Oh, da 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 da.
Also with dad. But yeah, I remember that first experience, and it was exciting. Like, everybody in your company is, hopping on a plane, and you're all kind of partying together, and there's like this nervous energy as you're going out there, and then you get there, and you hit the show floor and see what this
Right.
industry that you've chosen to be in is all about. And it's a little bit mind blowing, and this is, man, we're going back 20 years now, or whatever it was. And that experience, I think, is worth it for, for young guys like that. Again, I said that was a core memory, absolutely a core memory. And you go out there with the added bonus of, it's not just the show floor, right? Like, you could see the show floor, you could do all your stuff or whatever, but, like, I mean, the training that they offered out there, like, you got to remember, this is way back, right? Like,
Oh,
I,
the installer Olympics. Remember that? Like,
the
can
throwing one of
you?
those speakercraft amps, like,
Yeah.
how
Can
far
you
can you
load?
chuck
Can you
that?
load? How fast can you load this van? And
Yeah,
can you get it all in there
it's
in the fastest time allotted? Right? Like,
it's one of the things that makes this industry fun, right? Like, we deal with toys and we deal with fun things and that kind of thing, but you're under pressure, you're dealing with clients, you're trying to figure out, how are you going to suck down 4 Red Bulls and 2 packs of smokes on your way to the job site every single day? How this all,
well, that's a full day before
how
you've even
this
clocked in,
all,
my friend.
right. And that part of it is definitely fun, because you get to see, hey, we're not the only company in the world. And there's other guys who are doing this stuff. And I think shows like CEDIA, and maybe specifically CEDIA, are worth it for that reason. On the other hand, there's, I got to attend my first CES when I worked for Savant. There was one year that Savant decided to go to CES
I
and
remember that year.
brought
You guys
everybody
were
out
over
there.
in like the sands or something, right?
It
Like
was a
in the
weird, like,
off the floor thing.
yeah, and I mean, we justified it because we basically had our national meeting at the Flamingo while we were there, right? So everybody came into town. We did it during
Nothing
CES.
but the best.
I mean, hey, the Flamingo was cool. It was right by the zip line that was, zipping past your hotel room all night
Yeah.
long with drunks throwing up off of it.
Nothing but the best.
But it's Vegas, so, but, like, we did our national sales meeting, and that was cool. And we all kind of, everybody got floor passes, and we were able to kind of see stuff. And, like, I mean, I don't even think I got past, like, the drone section. Like, I think I made it as far as, like, drones and massage chairs and whatever hall that was. And, like, it's just
It,
overwhelming. It's just
it
completely
becomes
insane.
mind-boggling.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that is illustrative of what if you're going to go to a trade show and as an attendee and not just walk around like, wow, this is really cool and treat it like a vacation. You've got to go there with a plan.
Yep.
You've got to go there with an agenda. You've got to look at the show floor first. To your point, CES is an absolute mob show, right? Like it's just throngs of
It's
people
an
from all over
enormous
the world.
cluster F.
It's a patient zero event like none other, right? Like as far as communicable disease goes, like they call it the CES funk, right? Like all of that stuff is real, but the reality is like
Right.
that there has to be a value to that in some of those industries because without that exposure, maybe somebody doesn't see you or doesn't get a hold of you.
It's true.
And for a CI integrator, the math is probably pretty difficult to pencil out
Well, yeah.
to have CES pay off. But as far as a barometer on what's happened in the industry, what are the bigger trends happening out there? Again, who are some of these manufacturers? I'd never heard of Hisense or heard of
Hmm.
Skyworth or some of these other companies out there until I went to to CES and was like, "Oh my God, you've got a 300 by 600 square foot booth here that is full of product that is totally relative to what I do. I've
Right.
never seen this before. What are you about?"
Well, and I think you just hit the nail on the head with that point, is that obviously CEDIA is more directed towards residential integrators, commercial integrators, now that they've kind of folded that part in, but more the specialty guys, right? Like the do it for me guys. Like the, custom integrators are very much take a product, learn about it, design a system, install it. Whereas CES is, I mean, it's everything from, Tamagotchis to, you know, to every single.
Mine always died. I forgot to feed them.
I have two now. They're children, and I've kept them alive so far.
Oh shit! Wow,
Um,
good for you.
their names are Tom and Gotchi,
Yeah,
um,
gotcha.
but no Gotchi. And basically, CES, it's everything, right? It's Google is there, and like you said, Hisense is there, and it's a lot less focused on residential technology, and it kind of it CES is valuable because it really illustrates a point of what a small sliver our market actually is in the
In
larger
the
consumer
grand
electronics
in the
thing.
grand scheme of things, 100%. This is our thing, and how does it fit into that? Well, it's a very narrow through line. There used to be the high end audio show that would be on at the same time, and there would be, you know, some of the follow up conventions after CES that
Right.
always made it interesting. But yeah, when you look at that show as a CI integrator, you're probably walking around. You could be done with it in a day, right? Check out some of the larger video displays. You're going to go see what's going on with some of the commercial large format products out there, maybe some of the professional solutions.
Right.
And my day is done here. I don't need 3 days of this.
And
I think my plan is going to go for a day.
and also again valuable experience because that is probably that's the show that gets the most coverage. Those are the products that get the most coverage. Maybe that's a good way to anticipate what your client is going to bring to you. Like, hey, I heard about this thing in
Oh, I saw that.
Forbes or
Yeah,
Business Week or whatever it is, and like yeah, you can be equipped to kind of
to
do that
speak
if
to it.
if you can find it in
Yeah.
miles and
Yeah,
miles
you gotta
of
go you gotta
stuff.
go with the North Hall and the Central Hall. That's
Right.
really where the rubber meets the road for most people. If you haven't ever been to CES, it's that Central Hall. That's where most of the big CE manufacturers are gonna be. The North Hall is where all the cool car stuff is, and the South Hall is Bedlam, and
Hmm.
where robots will crush your skull under their robot boots as they march to conquer us all.
Treads.
Because
Yeah.
that particular hall is completely off the radar. Like I don't even know. I mean, there's video games, there's
Yeah.
solutions that I can't even recognize. The dancing robots and all that good stuff. It's I mean, it's great to see, and it's good to have that context, as you say.
Yeah,
But
it's like it's like wandering through the halls of AliExpress live, right? Like you're truly like that hall is like the Timo hall is like these are the things that you can buy a gross of these things for $5 and resell them at some stall at a flea market, and here you go. But it's a
dude,
good chance to get your hands on that sort of thing, and plus that's usually where the massage chairs are, which I mean, you can
that's
literally hop from one to the next and just,
yeah.
oh, let me try this. Oh, yeah, that's fantastic. That's
And if you're going to bring a virus home from another country, that is the place to pick one up.
yeah,
I
bring
mean,
wipes. That is essentially CES is like the American version of a wet market in Wuhan. It's
yeah,
really how that goes.
yeah, it's again, we're really selling the sizzle on CES, aren't we? I mean, I'm sure the people at the CTA really appreciate our review of their, shall we say, one of a kind event, right? Like
Sure.
CES has been around. I mean, there used to be two a year, now there's one a year, but it's really become morphed from the stereo show or the car stereo show as it was there for a few years into something that I don't think the original planners had any vision
Right.
that it would become. I mean, with
Well,
all of the
which makes
worldwide people, it's crazy.
CEDIA a better, CEDIA is more directed. That's definitely a better
Right.
event. And in the same vein as CEDIA, and we've talked about this before, the tech summits that are kind of around the country, it's obviously a lot smaller scale, right? Like it's not really so much an expo that, you see it's, kind of folding tables and whatever, but there are often great trainings. It's usually pretty close to you at least, if you're in a major metro, those are a little bit more directed and more frequent, like they're throughout the year, right? Like
Yeah.
that's your jam there.
I think my one bit of feedback, if I could give one to the people that run the tech summits and run those more regional shows, um, include more training that is valuable for the attendees. If you want to get people out, it's great to have your flag in the ground and to be in the event or at the show, what have you. But I think some of the feedback that I've gotten resonates with me is like, hey, this was great to come out and see these guys, but maybe I saw this at ProSource, maybe I saw this at CEDIA, maybe I saw this somewhere else already this year. Is there another layer here that I could get out of these shows that's more valuable? And I know the training thing gets a little dubious because it costs money and all of that stuff, but I think there's a more happy medium that you could reach, maybe whether it's AIA credits or CEUs or something like that, to be incorporated into those tech summits that would make them more valuable, and make a better impression on the public at large.
Well,
I can say from firsthand experience, the attendance and the way those shows turn out, depending on the part of the country that they're in, varies. And I think there's probably a way to elevate it to a certain point to maybe try to
right.
level it off a little bit.
I mean,
I have no idea how to do that, but that's my 2 cents.
I definitely, I mean, I share that assessment for sure. Is that there needs to be more compelling reasons to go to CEDIA regionals, and they do have trainings and they have certain things in there. But I think that's one of the things, and this is a brilliant segue on your part, probably without even knowing it, is that kind of segues into Lightapalooza and
That's what I do,
that's
Chris. I'm brilliant.
Lightapalooza has become the event that it is now 4 years or 5 years running because it's focused on training, right? Like the show floor and the expo part. Yeah, that's great. And it's bigger this year than it ever has been. However, it is just jam packed. Like there's 3 days of just jam packed lighting training to get guys up to speed. There's everything from, different controls, right? And it's not, what's nice about it is that it's not just specifically manufacturer focused, like how to, it's not, learning things specifically about Ketra or Lutron or Vantage or whoever. It's more, if you look at their course list, it's like harnessing DMX. It's like how are different ways to control different kinds of features. It's it's the positives of using linear light. And that linear could be, we hope it's Lucetta, but it could be any
There's
vendor.
only one brand that we hope it is.
And, but the trainings are more general. And I think that speaks to a lot of people where, hey, it's worth to go, even if, the lighting line that you haven't chose is presenting, because they're going to be presenting something that is just, it's great knowledge for anybody who's in lighting design classes. There's different, I saw a couple on there and I'm probably going to take them. There's different, process things for your business, right? Like the great Jayson saying is running a class, and it's all about, how to get your processes down. And that's something that's great to do in person, and visit a lighting show while you're at it, right? Like these are,
Yeah, get some of the eye candy in, walk around, see all the things there are to see. But to your point, I think you were probably looking at my course list, it sounds like, because I chose some of those fundamentals of DMX
yeah,
courses. I want to know more about the actual control interfaces, like I could look at a flow chart or I can look at a
sure.
system design and go, okay, this widget does, mm, I don't know exactly. It's got a model number on it. It says DMX. How do I actually interface with a control system? What do I need to point an integrator to that hasn't ever done lighting before to say, hey, I actually went to a class about this. Here's how this works.
Yeah.
Those are the kinds of takeaways that make a trade show valuable. And again, those are the ones that I signed up for. So I was like, when you were saying that, I was like, I think I'm actually in that class.
Well, and I looked at that class and I wanted to take it, and I started thinking about it. And like, again, I haven't been out of the tech world for that long. We did a lot of
Yeah.
DMX. It's, I'm not going to sit there for 2 hours.
I'm a dumb old man that doesn't know all those things.
But that's okay, because the important thing, and again, this kind of plays into what the role of a rep is, which we've kind of talked about in general terms here, is that,
Sure.
we're here to help, right? Like we're the local resource. We're a resource for dealers. We're a resource for manufacturers, and staying up on current trends and you being able to tell somebody how to tie in, their strip lights to a DMX controlled system is invaluable, right? Like that is, that's the thing. If you can get guys up to speed on how to do that, you are specifically making the industry better in that way.
Oh,
And,
thanks, Chris. I
and that,
appreciate that.
hey,
I'm making the industry better one day at a time.
Well, I mean, we're obviously the rising tide of this podcast lifts all the boats
Of
in
course it
immeasurable
does.
ways. However, but as a specific thing that reps do, like, yeah, that's something that people should know. Like we're always, we're in trainings and we're doing this kind of thing, and that's what we're here to do is act as your resource, right? When you call us up, like we're not there to call you at the end of the quarter and tell you to get your numbers up, although I'm sure we do at some points. We're there to help you and help your business and help you succeed. And knowing about the products that we sell and general trends within the industry is part of how we do it.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think it's all about having that firsthand reference and being able to share that experience or that knowledge tribally with confidence, and exposure to all these things and training and all that stuff
Yep.
is what elevates our game, elevates your game as business owners, gives you the tools to offer new solutions that you can charge for, right? Like it's all it's all part and parcel of growing your business and becoming a better person, becoming a better business person, becoming a better professional, becoming a better technician. It's all about growth, right? So I think maybe we've come to the determination that trade shows, are they worth it? Yeah, they are if you make them, if you make them, if
Well,
you go to them strategically
I
and
think
you
it
go
depends
there
on the
with a
show.
goal in mind. And it does
I,
depend on the show.
I think it's like anything else. Like I'm not going to tell somebody that CES is not for them to go to because again,
Oh,
it's all
go.
individual to your business, right? Like if
It's
you're,
amazing. You should go just to watch the people, like, just to see what that is, to be a part of it one time in your career, to go to the Super Bowl of electronic shows. That's basically what it is, right? So maybe the points of entry are a little more guarded than they were these days than they were in the past. It's a little harder to get in there. You can't just sneak in with a paper pass or what have you. Now they've got a mug shot and some biometrics and stuff on
facial
you to make sure
recognition
that
and
you're
AI, and
you're
you
the
can
right
you can
person.
expect a full inbox for 6 months after you attend this thing
Oh yeah.
because
Oh my God, I forgot about that. I shouldn't have
oh yeah,
registered for
buddy.
CES. Oh boy. Well,
Yeah,
anyways.
whip up your fake email addresses now that just go to an empty bucket somewhere. Yeah,
Oh yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, fake email address at fakeemail.com. That's where
Not interested
that's
at avintegrator.net.
oh,
Yeah,
there you
sure.
go. Exactly. Don't
Absolutely.
email me anymore at this email address.
Well,
Yeah, it's
and
good times.
it goes back to the old, you were talking about it on one of our calls last week, the fake names that everybody used to use to get into, CES, like,
Oh yeah.
first name Hugh, last name
Yeah.
Jackass,
Yeah.
it's lovely.
Yeah, Hugh, last name starts with a J, Jasshole. Yeah, that's the fake names that you can that used to be able to get away with. But to circle back or maybe tie a bow on all of this, the whole trade show thing, it's an investment, right? So if you're planning to attend them, pick why you're going. Like, is there a strategy here, or am I just going for a good time? If you're just going for a good time, that's okay. Like,
Yep.
that's part of the industry, right? The socialization, hey, I know this guy. I'm going to go and check this out. Maybe there'll be a party. Maybe there'll be a connection that I can make. Maybe there's something there for me. I think there's a lot of different rationale that you can use to justify going to CES or any trade show for that matter. But
Yeah.
yeah, just
It's,
go with a plan
it's a
and make
good,
sure that you stick to it.
it's a good carrot. I found it. It's definitely a good carrot, especially for the folks on your team where,
Oh my God.
you know,
Yeah. You want to go to CES this year? You want to go to Vegas for a couple of days, kid? Oh, you're 25, 27. You think you know everything? You don't know anything yet. Watch this.
yeah,
We're going to go to
it's a
Lotus of
big
Siam.
bear hug, right?
Yeah. Well, you got to, I mean, I think that's it too, right? Like, we're focusing a lot on CES, but the cities and the host venues for these places are all part of it. Like, I wouldn't have never probably gone to Indianapolis if it wasn't for CEDIA, right? Like, just not a place that was super high on my list to visit. And then they hosted it in San Diego, and everybody's like, "We love this, but it's so far away from Florida, I can't make it." So and we picked Denver as the host city because it's
That's the
right in
middle
the middle
ground.
and it's a great town,
Denver
right?
puts
Like,
on a good show for sure.
it's a good spot.
So lost in all of this stuff as we've been talking, what about some of the regional things, right? Like ASION every year, puts on a couple of events. ProSource puts on a couple of events. HDSA puts on a couple of events, including Lightapalooza. What's what is, as far as buying groups, right? Like what do they have to offer that the other shows do not. You've been to a couple of these things. I
I
haven't been
have.
to any of these,
And I've
and
been to all of those that you just mentioned and a few that you didn't mention.
they
So
just trot you out like that was
no,
Jayson back in the day. Was like,
that
here's
that was definitely
Sonny.
what. Yeah, I come trotting out with a little, a little pole behind my neck, like a one of those carousel horses or whatever.
Right.
But the I think the buying group show is varied because different buying groups do it differently. So, for example, you mentioned ProSource. ProSource is pretty much like going to a CES or going to a CEDIA. The
Mhm.
manufacturers that support ProSource and that show up for those shows show up in force.
Yep.
So, and ProSource is not just limited to custom AV, right? You've got white goods, you've got other verticals in the retail world, barbecues, what have you, that are all part of that bigger buying group of ProSource. So you're going to see some things that maybe don't necessarily dovetail into your business. I didn't know I was in the mattress business, or I didn't know I could sell appliances, right? Like those just aren't things that come to your mind at first when you walk into a show like that. But then you go to something like maybe an ASION event where there are no vendors there other than one-on-one meetings, and they're
Mhm.
focused more on the tabletop sessions. They're focused more on the breakouts where they don't really want to hear so much from the manufacturers. They want to talk about what's good for the group, what's
Right.
best practices. There's, I think, the real value in a show like that, and not that ProSource or some of these more
Just
brand focused
different
shows don't
strokes for different folks.
don't have that kind of opportunity as well, because ProSource meets, and if you don't know this, multiple times a year.
Mm.
Some of them are big to-dos, some of them are more regional events, some of them are broken out in between pro and power, like there's different tiers. Like that's a that's an entity that operates at the level that it does because of all of the different lanes that they run in. Where something like ASION, maybe something like Oasis, where they're really focused to CI,
Mhm.
are maybe not going to have as vendor focused events, but they are going to have more networking, team sharing, team building, best practices,
See,
etc.
the one that I have exposure with is the guild, and maybe the guild doesn't really fit the mold of a buying group or trade group. It's kind of in the
They're
middle.
the
It's a
the
lot
super
smaller.
friends of the custom install world.
Right. The super friends, exactly. And what I always kind of liked about that was that when they had, they would have a summit, and obviously they have a main summit and everybody gets together, but then they also have project management summit and finance summit where, you would send your comptroller or you would send your project manager to this thing, and it's a sharing of knowledge and a little bit more like what I like about that, and it's easier to do because it's a much smaller group than ProSource or ASION or whatever, is that it makes it focused. And one of the things that we need to get better at, I think, as an industry is kind of sharing what's working, right? As far as project management techniques, like, hey, what do you guys do? Is it a Gantt chart? Like, what's your, are you doing waterfalls? Are you doing, are you doing scrums and that kind of thing? Like, that's something that I think becomes very, very worth it to send, a couple of your project managers to, and whoever else. And it builds that camaraderie and whatever, as we're fleshing out as an industry, right? Like you might have companies that are, every installer is also a project manager and also a salesperson. And that's great. There's a spot for that. However, as we kind of flesh this thing out and become more, more in an industry, the sharing of that knowledge and seeing how other people do it and what might work for you or what might not work for you, I think that's super important. And I kind of feel like maybe that's one of the spots that maybe the CEDIA regionals can kind of get into that a little bit more, where it is more focused training, but it's also more focused networking, right? So you've got competitors in a market. Maybe this is a lot easier said than done, right? Right?
Well,
Like,
yeah, they're flashing gang signs at each
right,
other across
right,
the conference hall. Like, yeah, I'm not going to sit with Timmy and Bob over there
right.
because those guys, they're going to cut me. You
Yeah.
know.
Again, easier said than done, but I think that's a great that's a great vehicle in the regionals to kind of break these things out and maybe do a little bit more where it's not where it's not just manufacturer specific, right? Like you're not just going here, yeah, I'm going to take a 2-hour class on Netgear switches or whatever it is, and that's just the example I'm using, but maybe that's one way. And then maybe the other side of things is maybe you just lay that in for certification, right? So now, instead of having to do this as a webinar or fly to a place that's super distant, maybe the manufacturer comes in as part of your, CEDIA regional and offers a certification on their products at this local thing, right? Like
Right.
that's, if I was a manufacturer, it's like, hey, we're going to be there anyway. We might as well give these guys something of value. And as a dealer, I would be saying, well, we're going to go to this thing. It's 2 hours away. I'm going to walk out of there with something of value, and that's going to be a certification. And I can make an extra commission, or I can actually sell this stuff, or whatever it is. That might be a venue to do it. And
Yeah,
the
the Josh
structure is there.
AIs, yeah, the Josh AIs of the world could grow their business significantly if that was an option, right?
Yeah,
Or the Mad VRs, or anything that requires like a hands-on certification where you've got to sit down and go through videos and go through all that stuff. How about you come out, we walk you through this stuff in a room firsthand,
yep,
and we help you get the certification, help you get over the hump. And there's the ROI for driving the 2 hours. Hey, I'm going to sell this thing and I don't have to invest any more time on my own or at
right,
night or on the side. I can actually collimate and try to, maximize the ROI on this time by having my guy go out and do that training. And I'm not trying to call out Josh or MadVR specifically, but those are two brands that we deal with that have some certification that do require some legwork to be able to sell and to be successful with. So there's a prime example of some opportunities that came to mind.
so we're coming up the wall. We have a very important meeting coming up in a
We
couple of
do.
minutes of how our companies are going to merge, and
More being in the news, Chris. We're not talking about the news. We are the news, my guy. So
it's how it rolls. It's how it works. No
that's how we do
information,
it.
but still
That's
part of
right.
the news. Um, but the takeaway here, I think, and you may agree or disagree, but as far as trade show goes, and this is the most wishy-washy answer I think I've ever given on here, is that if it's you have to evaluate, and if it's right for you. I think we've laid out the different strata of
Yeah.
things on this episode pretty
Decision
well.
tree, right? Left to right,
And
up, down.
it's like everything else. If it's right for your business, then yes, you should absolutely go and find your own justifications for
Yeah.
for all of these things.
Holiday, trying to get
Yeah.
better at business. You decide.
Yep. And forget everything I just said. We want to see everybody out at Lightapalooza in January in Dallas. It's going to be a
Gonna get a lot
really
out of it.
yeah,
I'm
it's
gonna
going to be
be
a
in the
really great show.
DMX classes. You can hang out with me. We can learn about DMX controllers and all the different devices and how to talk to them together.
Yep. Would you say you're going to stop, drop, shut them down, open up shop in that DMX class, or no?
Um, I mean, I might. I mean, where my dogs at? That's all I got to know.
There
That's
you
really what
go.
I'm trying to figure out is where my dogs are.
Wow,
And then
I was out on the ledge there for a minute.
I
Thanks.
was just watching you teeter for a minute. I was going to pull you back. I've been around since the '90s, my guy. I know a few DMX songs. It's all good.
But well, anyway, so thank you for joining us. If you have any comments on this, and any questions or anything, like let's talk. Tell me
Yep.
all of these shows are just totally not worth the plane tickets to get to them.
I know, right? We want an ROI from our time invested for a podcast. Give me some meat and potatoes here. Hit us up on the inside, or is it at inside_integration on the gram? Check us out on YouTube. Check us out, obviously, on all the podcast apps. And thanks for listening this long. We appreciate you.
Take care, everybody. See you later.